Interview is reframing business development with 20 ways of being. But John, introduce yourself and then we'll go into the topic. But tell people a little bit about who you are and your passion for this topic.
Well, my name is John Watson. I'm the president of Accru Performance Marketing. And I'm a consultant, marketing coach, fractional CMO. I work with a lot of small to mid-sized organizations, including multiple charities. I've done this for about 30 years, and so you could call me a data nerd. It'd be kind of an easy way to to sum it all up.
Data nerd. And so did you start out with marketing or did you do something prior to that?
I started out pretty much as a data jockey. I was an analyst, a data analyst. And when I first got into marketing in the sort of mid 90s, my primary job was analyzing, marketing campaigns and really looking at, planning them in the first place and doing the post-campaign analysis. And that's really what brought me into the industry was the realization that people were not using their data, they were not really analyzing their performance particularly well, and most of the campaigns that we analyzed were pretty dismal in terms of their performance. So it got me really interested in why that was the case and what we needed to do in order to make the campaigns more effective. And this was largely charities that I started with. It was just very eye-opening to see just how foreign the data aspect of fundraising was.
So we have some misunderstandings or lack of knowledge or myths. One of the myths is, oh, we can't spend money on marketing in nonprofit. And I say, no, we can't afford not to spend money on marketing. So one of our messages is to help nonprofit leaders realize that it's really a business. It's really a business we're running. It's a tax exempt for purpose. And actually, it's a lot harder than running a for-profit business because you got all the regulations. So let's talk about some terms. We kick around the terms PR, marketing, and sales. So enlighten us on those terms and why are they important?
Well, I think they're not important. I think what I would like to do is for all of those terms to go away. I think they're largely misleading, and the definition of them is so broad and so non-universal, right? They're almost useless terms. And so what I prefer to do is call it development, right? In a charitable context, I would say donor development and not just from an acquisition point of view, but from a relationship development point of view. So I tend to think acquisition and development as the term that I would use either for a business or a charity. And it's really, what are you doing to grow your organization or grow your capacity to develop relationships? And I think when we talk about sales, marketing, PR, all the individual tactics, we quite often lose sight of the purpose, the reason we're doing them. We get sort of focused on the activity rather than the outcome.
That's easy to do. What do you measure and how do you measure it and what does it matter? And so we can get really buried in the data, can't we?
Yeah, I mean, it's super easy to get lost in data. There's so much of it. It's dizzying, right? And it really, you have to sort of discard the vast majority of it and focus simply on the key metrics that actually make a difference, right? Which brings us right back to the outcomes that we're seeking to affect. And then in charitable terms, that's usually inspiring people, making them aware of you in the first place, enrolling them in the possibility that the organization represents, and then turning them into some sort of a promoter, right? Either as a providing funds or their time in terms of volunteering or whatever they can do to actually support the organization. The interesting thing I've always appreciated about marketing from a charitable context is there's no product. So you have to sell the idea, you have to build the relationship because that's all there is.
So tell us what we'll find when we go to your website and where are the resources that would help us that you have.
The primary resources are the ebooks. There's 20 free ebooks to download. The book is right next to it, Being Profitable. You can see there's a free sample of the book for the first chapter. So there's 20 different resources in there that try to reframe the marketing conversation. And, in the context of charities, it's really, I use, it's written for businesses, but there's a tremendous overlap with subtle variations in language. The insight section on the other side of the menu there is a blog. There's 45 some odd long articles there on different facets of leadership and business development. And so the website is really set up for organizations that don't have a lot of internal capacity in the development space or the sales and marketing development. It really is meant to be a primer. There's all kinds of, like, the website is extremely deep, and it's largely set up to be a resource to help people learn.
That is amazing. So, in all of the 435 episodes we've had, I haven't seen this depth, and it's laid out so logically, John. This is so helpful. So, what's the most important thing that you think people should do with this information next?
I usually invite people to do an audit of their program. It's just a very, like, what I mean, an audit is a scary word. Call it a review, call it a data assessment, but I usually encourage people to dig into their donor data and say, let's look at, really understand our campaigns, our donor relationships, and start mining, really understanding the relationships and looking at the sort of the full life cycle of the relationship development, sort of map it out as a process, use the data to support, what's working and how well is it working or not working at each of the steps of the donor's journey. And then from there, it really is and you can use the book as sort of a guide to look at what the journey might look like. And you can sort of say, well, we have these elements in place, but we have these ones are missing or not relevant to our business. And then once you start to sort of look at it in that holistic context and with your data, you can see very clearly what is working and what's not. And then from there, you can look at each of those conversations and say, all right, well, what would we need to do in order to take more proactive role and actually facilitate that donor's journey through our organization? And how do we go about cultivating that in a more thoughtful and proactive way?
This is awesome. John Watson, thank you for being our guest today on the Nonprofit Exchange. You've given us some essential information to go forward. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.